Toph's first kiss, Aang and Katara being very flirty with each other, and the return of the singing nomads. This Valentine's Day, we're going to take a look at one of the most insane Avatar stories that Nickelodeon has ever published. You heard that right. What I'm about to cover is not fanfiction. So throughout the next 10 minutes of this video, try your very best to remember that what you're hearing could technically be considered Avatar canon. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the roller coaster. Before actually jumping into the contents of this comic, we need a little bit of backstory. Love Potion number 8 might be the most obscure Avatar comic ever made. The short story was published in 2008, right after the original series concluded, as a part of Nick's ready-to-read book series. Now, these ready-to-read stories were basically tailor-made for young kids who are just beginning to understand basic grammar. Love Potion number 8, for example, is marked as a level 3 story, which means its intended audience is, let's say, a 6 or 7-year-old who is just now beginning to read books on their own. Initially, there are two Avatar-related comics in this ready-to-read series, Aang's School Days, which is a simplified retelling of the Headband episode, and Sokka the Swordmaster, which just retold the story of Sokka's master. But then I think the writers got a little drunk with power, because a few months after those first two comics were released, they decided to abandon the formula of rehashing older episodes, and instead chose to make their very own mark on the Avatar universe with Love Potion number 8. This story is so obscure that there is almost zero information about it anywhere on the internet. Even the official Avatar Wikipedia page only has a paragraph about this thing, and there are no scans of what the pages actually look like to be found. So it's up to me, Baby Lion Turtle, to spread this hidden gem as far and wide as I can. But you guys have got to help me out and share this video because I spent a full $2 of my own money to buy this book so we can look at it together. Never accuse me of not caring about my audience, but that's enough backstory. Let's dive into this book. It starts off in the most Avatar way possible, with the gang on Appa, and they seem pretty tired, with Aang saying, "We have to find a place to rest." And I know we just began, but let me hit pause really quickly, just to say that if I was a 6-year-old who didn't know how to read, but I was trying to read this story to learn how to read, I would already be confused, and we are only on the first page. They're mixing up phrases on purpose, and what is that, an M-dash? That's kinda high level, right? I learned what that was in high school, but I feel like most adults still don't even know how to use them. Okay, back to the story. No more interruptions, I pinky promise. They find a spot to land and set up to get some rest, but Katara is feeling a little bit nervous about whether it is a safe area or not. When she asks Aang about it though, he reassures her, says that he has a good feeling about the place, and that's good enough for Katara. When they wake up the next morning, Toph senses that people are approaching. They're still in the Fire Nation territory, so the gang figures that it's probably bad news and they hop on Appa to get out of there. But then, from the distance, they hear singing from a familiar sounding voice. Love is in the air and in the stars and in my hair. Love is everywhere, like over there and right here, yeah. So apologies for that. I hope you're still here. I'm making a Lion Turtles promise that there will be no more singing for the remainder of this video. You guys are better off without it, trust me. But yeah, the singer is revealed to be Chong and his wife Lily, and their group of hippie nomads. But there's way more of them now. The last time we saw this group was at the Cave of Two Lovers at the beginning of Season 2. There were only 5 middle-aged hippies then, and Toph wasn't even in the gang yet, but now the group has 15 people of all ages. So good on them for expanding and spreading the message of free love or whatever. After Sokka reminds Chong how they all know each other, Chong mentions that his group is there for a love feast and invites the gang to join them. Aang and Katara are really into this idea, but Sokka and Toph very much are not. And I'm with the latter group on this one, because Mama Lion Turtle told me that if a weird, shirtless man asked me to join his love feast, I should most definitely say no and run in the opposite direction. This is where things really get out of hand, because next, Chong offers everyone a special drink called Love Potion number 8. Why number 8? Because apparently the first 7 batches didn't work out. Sokka uncharacteristically becomes the most responsible member of the gang, and Elise asks what's in the drink. Maybe he remembers the last time he drank a strange liquid and now he's a tad bit more cautious. But then Lily just answers his question by saying berries, and they all just drink up anyways. And then we get this image, which I don't know about you, but I feel like it's already kind of iconic. And what's with this creepy old guy over Sokka's shoulder? There's just so much to process here. So now, after drinking whatever that was, Aang finally asks for specifics about what a love feast even is, saying that it's going to be his first time, to which the nomad couple just say, go with the flow, and then they randomly do a trust fall. So then, there's this kid named Oev, and he seems to be the only child traveling with the nomads, which is a little sus. But he goes up to Katara and Aang and tells them to compliment one another. So Aang looks at Katara and starts hyping himself up. He's about to give her a super sincere compliment, but then he loses his nerve and what he ends up saying just kind of falls flat. But still, Aang and Katara are staring at each other, and they're both grinning and blushing, and are both secretly wondering whether the potion is actually starting to work. Katara tells Aang that maybe the reason he thought the place was safe was because it was protected by love. Then she starts feeling her heart flutter, and she's about to tell Aang how truly special he is to her. But what actually comes out of her mouth is, do you want to do a trust fall? Which I can only imagine is a pretty steamy suggestion for the intended audience of 6-year-olds. The story suddenly shifts to catch up with Sokka and Toph, who are both starting to feel the effects of the love feast. Toph, who realizes that she's having a ton of fun hanging out with Sokka, very uncharacteristically says she wants to hug someone. Upon hearing this, Sokka wraps his arm around Toph, pulls her close, and says, yeah, I wish Yue and Suki were here. Now, obviously, Toph was not a fan of that particular comment, but I don't think it could be helped. Sokka just cannot comprehend his own power when it comes to the ladies. So while Aang and Katara are dancing the day away, a sulking Toph is approached by Oev, that one nomad who's around her age. During some small talk, Toph says that she misses home, and then Oev casually mentions how his parents were servants for a super rich Earth Kingdom family, and that he ran away with the nomads to explore the world. I'm on to you, Oev. You ain't that slick. But the move worked on Toph, who puts it together that Oev's family actually worked for the Beifongs. The two hit it off and they eventually start dancing right alongside the others. That's right, Toph is willingly dancing with the guy who used to be her servant. I told you this story was out there. And let me rewind for a bit because something about this image threw me off. Look at the creepy shadowy figure. At first I thought it might be Toph's father, but the figure actually looks a lot more like Master Yu based on the hair and clothes. But just look at the eyes. Why is he in the Avatar state? It's just... I don't even know what to make of this comic anymore, man. But we are almost done. At around dinner time, Aang approaches Katara to confess one final secret to her before they are once again interrupted by Sokka. And then at dinner, the hippies start handing out more love potion, but the gang has had enough love for the day and responsibly decide to pass on it. That's when Lily finally reveals that the potion actually has only 3 ingredients: sugar, berries, and water. When they hear this, Katara and Aang are both embarrassed, but they're like, oh, of course we knew it was fake, we were just going along with the rest of you for fun. And on the final page of the story, Oev gives Toph a goodbye cheek kiss, and Toph gives him a special earth-bent, heart-shaped rock. And that's it. That's love potion number 8. I know your minds are probably racing right now, but I bet a bunch of you are probably wondering the exact same thing. Is this story actually canon or not? Because there's just no way, right? The best answer I can give is a confident yesn't. Let me explain. Does love potion number 8 contradict anything that is already canon? No, it does not. In fact, we can actually pinpoint with almost perfect accuracy exactly where the scene would have taken place in the show. Based on the gang's Fire Nation outfits and Toph's lack of a meteor rock arm bracelet, this story would have had to have taken place between Season 3, Episode 2, The Headband, and Season 3, Episode 4, Sokka's Master. And if you recall from earlier in this video, those are the exact 2 episodes that not so coincidentally have their very own entries in this ready-to-read book series. And there are actually 3 other 100% canon comics that occupy the same space between those 2 episodes, including one where Sokka joins the Fire Nation army for a day, and another one where Toph and Katara dress up as boys to get into a bar. So if those other comments from the exact same time period are canon, it's looking pretty good for Love Potion number 8, right? Not exactly. The reason I can call those other 3 comments 100% canon is because they are all part of either the Lost Adventures or the Team Avatar Tales anthology collections. Those are collections of comic stories that have been specifically marked as canon by Avatar's creators Mike DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. The fact that Bright intentionally ignored, or to be honest, have maybe never even heard of Blood Potion number 8 means that officially it is not a part of the Avatar canon. But don't let that stop you from enjoying this cute little story. And hey, headcanon exists for a reason, so believe whatever makes you the most content.